King Gentius, the last king of Illyria, came to power during a turbulent period in the 2nd century BC. The Illyrian kingdom was struggling to maintain its independence as Rome expanded its influence across the Mediterranean. Gentius inherited a weakened state with internal divisions, external threats, and mounting pressures from neighboring powers, especially the Romans. Yet Gentius was determined to resist foreign domination and rebuild the strength of Illyria through diplomacy and military reform. Gentius belonged to the Rdai tribe, one of the most powerful Illyrian groups, and ruled from his capital in Shkodra, modern-day Shkodra, Albania. His reign began with efforts to consolidate power within the fragmented Illyrian territories. He faced challenges not only from tribal factions but also from the growing presence of Roman influence in nearby regions. To secure his authority, Gentius undertook reforms to centralize control and strengthen the kingdom's political structure. One of Gentius's primary goals was to revitalize the economy of Illyria. Trade was a vital part of the kingdom's livelihood, and he sought to regulate commercial activities, especially along the Adriatic coast. However, Gentius's reign also saw a continuation of piracy, a traditional practice among Illyrian sailors. While piracy provided economic benefits, it created tensions with Rome and Greece, who demanded safer seas for their merchants. Gentius had to carefully balance the benefits of piracy with the risks of provoking war. At the outset of his reign, Gentius avoided direct conflict with Rome, choosing instead to rely on diplomacy and alliances with neighboring kingdoms. His strategy was to preserve Illyrian sovereignty by fostering friendly relations with Macedon and other powers that shared a common interest in resisting Roman expansion. However, these alliances would soon draw Gentius into conflicts beyond his control, forcing him into a confrontation that would define his legacy as the last king of Illyria. During his reign, Gentius sought to align himself with Macedon, another regional power struggling against Roman expansion. At the time, King Perseus of Macedon was engaged in a series of conflicts with Rome, known as the Third Macedonian War. Gentius saw in Perseus a potential ally who could help bolster Illyria's resistance against Roman domination. In 169 BC, Gentius entered into an alliance with Macedon, marking a turning point in his foreign policy. The alliance with Perseus was based on mutual interest. Both rulers wanted to curb Roman influence in the Balkans and protect their sovereignty. Gentius hoped that by joining forces with Macedon, he could strengthen his military capabilities and gain access to Macedonian resources. Perseus, in turn, expected Illyria to provide naval support and disrupt Roman supply lines along the Adriatic coast. Together, they aimed to resist Roman encroachment and maintain control over their respective territories. However, the alliance with Macedon came with significant risks. By siding with Perseus, Gentius effectively made Illyria a target for Roman aggression. The Roman Senate, already suspicious of Illyrian piracy, now viewed Gentius as a hostile actor aligned with one of Rome's greatest enemies. The alliance also created internal dissent within Illyria, as some tribal leaders opposed war with Rome and feared the consequences of military defeat. Despite these challenges, Gentius committed fully to the alliance, hoping that combined Macedonian and Illyrian forces could check Roman expansion. However, the timing of the alliance proved unfortunate. By the time Gentius entered the war, Perseus's position had already weakened, and Roman forces were closing in on Macedon. Gentius would soon find himself isolated, with little support from his allies and a powerful enemy bearing down on his kingdom. The decision to align with Perseus of Macedon sealed Gentius's fate. In 168 BC, Rome declared war on Illyria, marking the beginning of the Third Illyrian War. The Roman Senate justified the war by accusing Gentius of piracy, disrupting trade routes, and conspiring with Macedon against Roman interests. For Rome, the war was an opportunity to eliminate a troublesome rival and secure dominance over the Adriatic. Gentius responded by mobilizing his army and navy, determined to defend his kingdom. He fortified key coastal cities, including Shkodra and Lissus, and prepared his fleet for naval engagements. Despite his preparations, however, Gentius faced significant challenges. His forces were limited in number and poorly equipped compared to the well-organized Roman legions. Furthermore, the Illyrian tribes remained divided, with some refusing to support the war effort. Rome acted swiftly, launching a multi-pronged campaign against Illyria. A Roman fleet blockaded the Adriatic coast, cutting off Illyria's access to supplies and reinforcements. At the same time, Roman legions advanced overland, capturing key towns and dismantling Illyrian defenses. Gentius's forces fought bravely, but were unable to match the discipline and strength of the Roman army. The decisive battle took place near Skadra, where Gentius made a final stand against the invading Roman forces. Despite his efforts to rally his troops, the Illyrians were overwhelmed by the superior tactics and equipment of the Roman legions. With his capital besieged and his forces in disarray, Gentius was forced to surrender, bringing an end to the war and marking the fall of the Illyrian kingdom. The defeat of Gentius in 168 BC marked the end of Illyria's independence and the beginning of Roman rule in the region. After his surrender, Gentius was taken as a prisoner to Rome, where he was paraded through the streets as part of a Roman triumph, a humiliating spectacle that symbolized the complete subjugation of Illyria. Gentius spent the remainder of his life in captivity, far from the land he had once ruled. Following the fall of Gentius, Rome dismantled the political structure of Illyria. The kingdom was divided into smaller administrative units, each governed by Roman officials. Many of the Illyrian tribes were disarmed and forced to pay tribute to Rome. Illyrian piracy, which had once been a major source of wealth, was suppressed, and Roman control over the Adriatic was firmly established. The fall of Illyria had far-reaching consequences for the region. With Gentius's defeat, the Balkans became a staging ground for further Roman conquests, including the eventual annexation of Macedon and Epirus. The cultural and political identity of the Illyrians began to fade as Roman law, language, and customs took hold. However, traces of Illyrian culture would survive, influencing later populations in the region. Despite his defeat, Gentius's reign remains an important chapter in the history of the Balkans. His efforts to resist Roman domination, though ultimately unsuccessful, symbolized the struggle for sovereignty and independence that would define the region's history for centuries to come. Gentius's story, like that of Queen Tuta before him, serves as a reminder of the resilience and determination of the Illyrian people. Following his defeat, Gentius was transported to Rome as a captive, where he became part of a grand triumph and elaborate Roman celebration to honor military victories. Triumphs were designed not only to showcase Roman power but also to humiliate conquered leaders. Gentius, alongside his family and key officials, was paraded through the streets of Rome in chains, demonstrating his total subjugation. For the Roman public, these spectacles were a reminder of their empire's growing dominance, while for Gentius, it was a bitter end to a reign marked by both ambition and miscalculation. Gentius's family also suffered greatly in the aftermath of the war. His wife, Etuta, and their children were captured along with him and displayed during the triumph. While some ancient sources suggest that Gentius may have been treated with a degree of respect due to his royal status, most accounts emphasize his fall from power. The once proud king who had dared to defy Rome was now reduced to a symbol of failure, living in captivity in a foreign land. Despite his imprisonment, there is little evidence to suggest that Gentius was treated with cruelty during his later years. Roman customs sometimes allowed defeated monarchs to live in relative comfort, as long as they posed no threat to Roman interests. It is likely that Gentius spent the remainder of his life under house arrest, far from Illyria, without the means to reclaim his throne or influence events back home. His fate reflects the harsh reality of resistance against Rome. Those who dared to stand in its way were not only defeated but erased from political relevance. The imprisonment of Gentius marked the symbolic end of Illyria as an independent power. With their last king in chains, the Illyrian people lost not only their leader but also the political unity that had briefly existed under his reign. Though fragments of Illyrian identity would survive under Roman rule, the fall of Gentius signaled the beginning of a new era, one in which the Illyrians were absorbed into the vast machinery of the Roman Empire. The annexation of Illyria into the Roman Republic brought significant changes to the region. The Romans reorganized the former kingdom into a province, installing governors to oversee administration, taxation, and law enforcement. While some local customs were allowed to continue, much of Illyria's political structure was dismantled, leaving the once independent tribes at the mercy of Roman officials. Roman law was imposed, and many aspects of Illyrian governance, including piracy, were banned outright. The transition to Roman rule was not without resistance. Many Illyrian tribes were reluctant to accept foreign domination and continued to resist in isolated uprisings. However, these rebellions were quickly and brutally suppressed by the Roman legions. Over time, the infrastructure of Roman authority forts, roads, and trade networks began to reshape the region. Cities like Dyrrhachium and Apollonia, which had once thrived under Illyrian control, were now integrated into the Roman trade system, becoming important outposts for commerce and military operations. Roman rule also brought new economic opportunities, Though not all Illyrians benefited equally, some coastal elites adapted to the new order, leveraging their wealth and connections to gain favor with Roman officials. Inland tribes, however, struggled to adjust, as traditional ways of life were disrupted by the arrival of Roman settlers and new taxation policies. Over time, Illyrian society became increasingly divided between those who collaborated with the new rulers and those who remained hostile to foreign control. Culturally, Roman influence began to erode the distinct identity of the Illyrian people. Latin gradually replaced local languages in administration and trade, and Roman religious practices spread throughout the region. However, Illyrian traditions did not disappear entirely. Elements of their culture, particularly in art, religion, and folklore, survived, blending with Roman customs to create a unique cultural fusion. This blending of traditions would shape the development of the region long after the fall of the Roman Empire. Though his reign ended in defeat, King Genghis's legacy endured in the collective memory of the Illyrian people and later populations in the Balkans. As the last ruler to resist Roman conquest, Genghis became a symbol of defiance and national pride. His story, along with those of other Illyrian leaders like Tuta, represents the ongoing struggle for independence that has characterized the region's history for centuries. Genghis's resistance to Rome, though ultimately unsuccessful, inspired later generations who faced similar challenges from foreign invaders. In modern historiography, Genghis is often viewed as a tragic figure and ambitious leader who sought to preserve his kingdom but found himself outmatched by the overwhelming power of the Roman Republic. His decision to ally with Perseus of Macedon is frequently criticized as a strategic mistake, yet it also highlights the difficult choices faced by small states caught between larger powers. Genghis's reign serves as a reminder of the complexities of leadership during times of crisis, where ambition and pragmatism often collide. The memory of Genghis persisted in the folklore of the region, where he is remembered not only as a warrior but also as a ruler who cared for his people. Some legends portray him as a wise king whose downfall was the result of betrayal by neighboring tribes, while others emphasize his courage in the face of impossible odds. These stories reflect the enduring significance of Genghis's legacy, not only as a historical figure but as a symbol of resilience and hope in the face of adversity. In modern Albania and the surrounding Balkan countries, Genghis's legacy has been embraced as part of the region's cultural identity. Statues, monuments, and historical commemorations honor his memory, celebrating him as a national hero. His story has become an integral part of the narrative of resistance against foreign domination, reinforcing the idea that the fight for freedom is a defining feature of the Balkan spirit. The fall of Genghis marked the end of Illyria's status as an independent kingdom, but its influence did not vanish entirely. Elements of Illyrian culture persisted under Roman rule, influencing the development of the region in subtle yet enduring ways. Over time, the Illyrian tribes were absorbed into the Roman political and social structure, contributing to the cultural mosaic that would later define the Balkans. The legacy of Illyria can still be seen in the region's art, language, and traditions, which bear traces of their ancient past. One of the most significant contributions of the Illyrians was their role in the development of naval technology. The Liburnian ships used by the Illyrians were adopted by the Romans, who incorporated these vessels into their own navy. The speed and maneuverability of the Liburnian ships gave the Roman fleet a crucial advantage in future naval battles, demonstrating the lasting impact of Illyrian innovation. Even after the fall of their kingdom, the Illyrians continued to shape the course of history through their contributions to Roman military strategy. The fall of Illyria also had a profound impact on the geopolitics of the region. With the Illyrian kingdom dismantled, the Balkans became a key battleground for future conflicts between Rome, Macedonia, and later invaders. The patterns of resistance and conquest established during Genghis's reign would be repeated throughout the centuries, as new powers sought to dominate the strategically important region. The struggle for control over the Balkans, which began with the Roman conquest of Illyria, would continue to shape the region's history for millennia. Ultimately, the story of Genghis and the fall of Illyria is not just a tale of defeat, but also a testament to the enduring spirit of the region. The challenges faced by Genghis and his people resonate with the experiences of later generations who fought for freedom and independence. Although the Illyrian kingdom may have fallen, its legacy lives on in the culture and identity of the Balkans, serving as a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the desire for sovereignty and self-determination remains a powerful force.